还有人在进来，我们 maybe 再给他30秒钟。我们可以开始了。大家晚上好。欢迎大家来到这个讲座。我叫刘明珠，是这个讲座的 host。我们还有几个 co-host， 吴景刘丹老师在 background 做技术支持，谢谢他们。今天我们请到的是 Alex 黎，是Lexington High School 的开学12年级。Alex 今年7月份呢，在那个国际化学奥林匹克国际竞赛当中得到了总分第1名的好成绩。我 Alex 9年级你就开始在那个 high school 在数学science ball 数学队，对吧？然后一直参加这些活动，然后11年级担任2个队的 captain。然后呢，我和 Alex 的父母认识，聊过几次。在印象里呢，Alex 是一个非常就说，非常努力，自己有方向，非常 self-motivated 的一个孩子。然后这次得知他取得这样成绩，真的很为他高兴。我想每一个努力的孩子都有自己的故事，所以呢，我们今天请到他来分享他的心得，然后也许给大家一些启发和那个就是经验大家可以学到，一定能学到很多。那我们就让 Alex 开始吧。对了，还有感谢那个 CALex 提供这个平台非常感谢 Alex。
Hello everyone. I'm Alex, and I wanted to thank all of you for coming to listen to my talk today. Today I'll be talking about my journey through the Chemistry Olympiad program and how I got to where I was today. So I'll break this up into about 2 parts. The first part, I will talk a little bit about what I did throughout my years in high school and how I got to the International Olympiad. And in the second part, I will take some questions from you guys and I will answer them to the best I can. So this first part is how did I get to where I am today? So in middle school, I went to Joan F. Clark Middle School in Lexington, and I participated in our science bowl starting in 8th grade. And at the time, I didn't do too much chemistry. I did mostly math, but it was the beginning of my exposure to science and the importance of science in studies in the world today, and also my introduction to chemistry as well. So going into high school, in the summer before high school, I wanted to continue doing science bowl in high school, and I knew that I would have to learn another subject in science, and I couldn't just do math and science bowl. And so the year before, several volunteers at our middle school had sent us a bunch of online textbooks, and I was looking around and I saw this chemistry textbook, which is just called Chemistry, by the author whose name is Zumdahl. You can see it right here. And I was looking in this textbook and I saw some pretty interesting things. And so over the summer before my freshman year, I decided to read the textbook and try to do some of the problems in it. And this textbook isn't anything too hard. It's a textbook that some schools might use for their AP classes, but I thought it was very interesting and I was able to learn a lot throughout that summer before high school. And so in my freshman year, I participated in our high school science bowl team. I also continued to study chemistry with some harder books that were recommended to me by the juniors and the seniors in the high school at the time. And so here are a few of the books. I read this. This book is actually the book used at MIT for their introductory chemistry classes given to freshmen who are taking introductory chemistry classes. And they also began reading this book, which is an introduction to organic chemistry that some colleges will use as their first semester or first and second semester organic chemistry books. And the more I read, the more interesting I thought it was. And so reading these books made me want to keep learning more and more. So in my freshman year, I also learned about the chemistry Olympiad. And actually there was this student in Lexington High School whose name was Josh Park, and he participated in the International Olympiad as well. And he earned a gold medal. And hearing this I heard about this when I was in 8th grade, and I was extremely inspired by his story. And that's part of what motivated me to begin studying chemistry. And so entering my freshman year, I had already had this idea that I wanted to participate in the Olympiad. So the Olympiad had various stages, and here in Massachusetts, the first stage is what's called the Avery-Ashdown exam. So all different districts across the country have a local chemistry exam, and each section selects the top scorers from their local exam to participate in the national exam. So in my freshman year, I participated in our local exam hosted by the ACS Northeastern section, which consists of Eastern Massachusetts and New Hampshire. And I managed to get second place on this exam, which allowed me to qualify for the next round. And here is like a photo from that night with another student from my school and also my chemistry teacher. So the next round was the national exam, which is much harder. And it consists of a few parts. It consists of part 1, which is a multiple choice section. Part 2, which is a open response question with a more deep chemical analysis. And part 3, which is a laboratory section. And so here I have some tests from previous years of the part 2 sections. And you can see that a lot of these questions require more critical thinking in that they require you to analyze graphs and to extrapolate data from graphs in order to answer questions using chemical principles that you've learned on your own. And so how the Olympiad works is that from all the students, there are roughly 1,000 students who take the national exam. And from these 1,000 students, the top 20 scores will participate in a 2-week program in the beginning of June, which is sometimes called the Olympiad Study Camp. And so I was lucky enough to be selected for this study camp during my freshman year. And in this study camp, we had lectures and labs, and this was also the camp where they select the team each year to represent the US at the international competition. So here is a photo from 2018 when I was attending the lectures, and you can see that all these students are paying attention. They're all really talented. And here is a photo of me during a lab analyzing some results from an experiment. And so that year, 4 of my teammates who were selected, they all earned 4 gold medals. And this was the second year in a row that this happened. And this result inspired me to keep working towards trying to one day make the US team as well. Because at that point, I was surprised that I had even qualified for the camp. And the camp I thought was extremely difficult. And so seeing how my teammates did motivated me to study more to eventually succeed at the camp. That summer after my freshman year, I also began to look into chemistry research. And so I emailed this professor at the Harvard Department of Chemistry and Chemical Biology, and he was doing some research in inorganic chemistry. And I told him about my interest in the subject and my interest in his research, and I was able to shadow a graduate student who was doing some research about some compounds related to copper. And I helped him complete some experimental procedures. And this is where I was able to practice a lot of my lab skills, since I knew that each year at the camp, about 50% of your performance is evaluated based on labs, and the other 50% is theoretical. And so I thought this was a nice chance for me to learn more lab techniques that I could use to help prepare me in future years. Over my sophomore year, in order to study more, I tried to do some harder competitions for practice, and I also read a few harder books. So this is another organic chemistry book that a lot of people who participate in the study camp use, and it covers the subject in more depth and also in a lot more detail. I also practiced using some old international Olympiad competitions and also some competitions from other countries, such as the Baltic Chemistry Olympiad, which is a Olympiad that is actually completed in 3 Baltic countries in Europe. So during my sophomore year, I was able to qualify to go back to the study camp, and this time I really had high aspirations of trying to make the team, to make the United States team this year. And so this is what our exam room looked like when we took our 3-hour-long exams, and this is what the lab looked like when we were completing our practical exams. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make the team this year, but I knew I came really close, and so I was a little bit down about that. But I knew that if I kept working even harder the next year, that I would be able to qualify for the United States team the next year. So this summer, I also explored some other areas of research. So I was more interested in trying to do some chemistry research from home, and that led me to explore some computational chemistry. And so I worked with the Jensen Group, which is a group at the MIT Department of Chemical Engineering, and they were using machine learning in chemical prediction. And so I helped work on a project that used neural networks to train models that would help predict properties of molecules. And specifically, there's this analytical technique called NMR, which translates a molecule into a spectrum that can be used to help distinguish between different molecules. And so I was assigned with helping a project which was designed to predict this spectrum given the molecule that was inputted. And I thought this was really interesting, and also a very interesting application of machine learning in the natural sciences. And I'm still doing this work today, and I think that research is one of the more interesting side effects of me learning chemistry throughout these years. So throughout my junior year, I tried to study with even harder papers in order to get even better. And so some of the hardest Olympiad papers are actually in Russian and in Chinese from the Russian and Chinese national Olympiads. So me and a few friends, we took these papers and we translated them all through. And with these translated papers, we tried to complete as many as we could and learn new topics and improve our test taking skills. And obviously this year, the camp was a bit different. Due to the pandemic, we had to complete all our camp lessons through Zoom. And so this was a screenshot taken after our first lecture with all the 20 students who had qualified this year, and also our mentors. And I'm sure, as you all know, this year I was able to qualify for the United States team, and at the International Olympiad, I was also able to earn first prize, which was very surprising for me as well. But also my other teammates also all did really well. All 4 of us earned gold medals just like we had 2 years before, and I'm sure that our mentors were really proud of all of us. So now what I'm doing is I'm continuing my research in the applications of machine learning in chemistry. I'm also working on college applications since I will be applying to college next fall. And I've also began developing an interest in physics as well. So I'm beginning to learn a little bit about that as well. So I'm gonna now answer some questions, and I'm gonna start with some questions that were sent in before my talk today, and I'll answer those. And then after that, I'll open up the Zoom call to any questions that you guys may have right now. So the first question I received was, from what grade did I start to prepare? And so I started preparing since the summer before my freshman year. So the summer before 9th grade, which is, I believe that was 2017. And so I've been studying for 3 years, and yeah, over the course of the 3 years, I was able to learn a lot that helped me out. Another question I received was, do you need to study college chemistry such as inorganic chemistry, organic chemistry, and physical chemistry? And I will say that the amount of chemistry you need to study really depends on the level of the competition. So the local level and even parts of the national level are all topics that are mostly covered in the AP chemistry curriculum. And so that would be maybe like the first year of college, since AP chemistry is actually designed to replicate a college level chemistry course. But once you get into the study camp and international competitions, then they begin to ask a lot more of especially organic chemistry. And they also ask some concepts that you can only learn from detailed study in inorganic chemistry and physical chemistry, but those are more limited. So I would say that the most, other than like a general background, other than like general studies in chemistry, the Olympiad has a heavy focus on organic chemistry. So another question was, does the competition involve doing experiments? And the answer to that is usually it does, but obviously this year, since we had to do everything remotely, there were no experimental sections to the competition this year. So the United States national exam, it has a part which is fully experimental, and they grade you based on your ability to create an experimental procedure and carry it out and analyze your results. Whereas the International Olympiad, they also have an experimental section, which is worth a lot more. And that experimental section is based on your ability to follow a procedure and obtain specific results. So an example of one task on the National Olympiad might be that you're given a few metals and you need to compute their heat capacity, which is the amount of heat that a metal can absorb to raise it by a certain temperature. Whereas given on the International Olympiad, one example of an experimental problem might be that they give you the procedure about how to synthesize a certain compound, and then it is your job to, using all the materials they gave you, to follow the procedure and to synthesize the compound that they want you to. And then from that, you'll be graded on things such as your yield, which is how much of the compound you're able to synthesize, and also how pure your compound is. So there are definitely experiments on all levels, but the experimental sections are a bit different depending on which level you are training for. So another question I received was, is it true that it is more difficult to get into the finals in Massachusetts? I will say, I think in general it is, but the selection process is not exactly based on states. So how the selection process works is that from each section, obviously, they choose participants for the national exam based on the section, and the bigger your section, the more students you're allowed to choose. However, there is a rule that only 2 students from each high school are allowed to take the national exam. And so I would say that the difficulty actually depends more on your high school than the state you live in, since if you attend a very competitive high school, then even if you do score in, say, the top 10 students in your section, if you're not in the top 2 in your high school, you're not allowed to take the national competition. So yeah, it is true that depending on where you go to school or where you live, it can sometimes be more difficult to get into the finals. But if you have the ability to work hard and study a lot, then you should be able to make it to the finals no matter where you live. Another question I got was, how can I safely run chemistry experiments at home? So I never actually ran any experiments at home. Most of my experimental training was at the lab that I talked about working at after my freshman year, and also during experimental sessions at the study camps. However, I know that if you do want to get better at running chemistry experiments at home, a very good way to do this, which was actually told to me by a mentor, is to bake a lot, because baking and performing chemistry experiments have a lot of similar qualities in that you need to precisely measure your ingredients, and you need to cook your ingredients after you mix them together, which is the same as, say, heating up a mixture of chemicals to make a new chemical. Other than that, I would say that if you do have any interest in running chemistry experiments at home, then the safest way to do is probably to do it outside, since sometimes chemicals can release nasty gases, which would be better left outside. How did I find my interest and how did I stick with it? And have I ever thought about giving up? This was another question I received. So I sort of coincidentally found my interest because I was in 8th grade and I was trying to decide which science subject to study. And I was just looking through this file that had a bunch of science textbooks that was sent to me by some high school students that were volunteering at our science bowl practices. And I just happened to see the chemistry one and open it up and it looked interesting to me. And then that's essentially how I found this interest. And I think sticking to it, I just, whenever I thought about giving up or whenever I thought, or whenever I was dismayed by how difficult it was, I would just think about, I would just try to keep my goals in mind at the end. And I would also try to remember how interesting what I was learning was and how much I enjoy learning this material. And so I think there are definitely times where I thought about giving up, times that I thought were more difficult than others. But I think just keeping the bigger picture in mind and seeing my own improvement helped motivate me to keep studying and to keep learning new things. Another question I received was, how do I see my interest in chemistry and math align with my future career development? And if I have any advice for kids who haven't found their interest in any career path. So the first part of this question, how I see my interests in chemistry and math align with my future career. So I'm definitely thinking about pursuing a career in STEM, so science or math or technology or engineering. And as of right now, I'm not 100% sure which direction I want to head, but I think studying math and studying chemistry has definitely shown me that there is a lot you can do to help people around the world using science knowledge, whether it be developing new drugs or like providing solutions to other problems around the world. And so I think my studies in science in general have really shaped what I imagine my future career to be like. And for advice for kids who haven't found their interest in a career path, I would say that especially in high school is a very, very good time to explore a bunch of different subject areas. And especially at Lexington High School, where we have numerous clubs, students can always try out many new things. So we have like economics clubs and we have business clubs and robotics clubs. I would say students should try some new things that they maybe haven't necessarily thought about doing before, because it might be possible that one of the things they try will be something they really enjoy doing and that they might consider pursuing in the future as their career. And so those are all the questions I received beforehand. And now I think I'll open up the floor to any other questions that people might have.
Thank you so much, Alex. That was great, and a lot of good questions like was submitted before. I do see a bunch of questions in the chat window, but unfortunately I was kicked out of I got disconnected, so I cannot see.
Oh, okay, I can see them.
Okay, can you start from the top?
Okay, yes, I will start from the top. So the first question, did you also participate in others like math, physics, and computer? So I actually did, but I didn't take these as seriously. So I participated in the Math Olympiad, and I've been doing that actually since middle school. I've been able to reach the national level, which is the USA Math Olympiad, or the USAMO, and I qualified for that this year as well. But I haven't really been pursuing that as hard, mostly because I think math is very, very difficult to improve on, and also I think my interests lie more in the field of science. I also participated in the biology Olympiad when I was taking AP biology in high school, and I was able to qualify for the national Olympiad, but I did very bad on it because I was just participating based on the knowledge I learned from my high school class. But I thought it was very interesting, and the questions seemed very difficult as well. And I actually did participate in the physics Olympiad this year as well, which I studied for on my own. And physics actually was very fun for me because it seemed like a very it was like a mix of science and math that I found to be very interesting. and the questions I was able to answer with my knowledge in physics seemed like were questions that I sometimes wonder myself. And so I participated in the physics Olympiad this year as well, but the National Olympiad was canceled because of the pandemic, which is pretty unfortunate. The next question is, which is more challenging, Science Bowl or Science Olympiad? So I think so in terms of these Science Olympiad competitions, I think these are actually more challenging because these force you to learn science topics in much more depth than Science Bowl does. I think Science Bowl has more emphasis on learning learning to a lower level, but learning that material better so that you can be fast in recalling information. Since Science Bowl requires you to buzz in before your opponents to answer questions, but that creates a limit in that they can't require you to know extremely difficult concepts, since it would be really hard to write questions about those and also to recall from your memory those. So overall, I would say Science Olympiad has a more difficult curriculum, but Science Bowl requires you to like learn the topic in a slightly different way than Science Olympiads do. So next question. I'm a little confused about what it's asking. So from Joanna, if you could re-ask your question. I'm not really.
Or maybe.
Yeah, I think the question was asking, at what time did you find yourself?
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, getting better at chemistry than any other subject.
Oh, okay. So, I think I think the first time I realized that I was getting pretty good at chemistry was when I took the Avery Ashdown exam. So let me go back to that slide. This exam, and I didn't really have any high expectations about how I would do, since I had only studied for a few months, and I knew many of the other participants had taken chemistry classes in high school. But when I got second place, I realized that I had actually learned quite a bit, in that chemistry was a subject I was actually pretty good in. So next question, how was I able to find research opportunities at universities? So all I actually did, all I did was I went onto the department websites and I looked at some professors, and I tried to find some doing research in areas that seemed interesting to me. And then if they seemed like something I would be interested in learning more about, I would just email the professor asking if I could like help out over the summer to learn more about their research. And then from there, I emailed a bunch of different professors, and obviously not a lot replied to me, but one of them did, and that was the group I ended up spending my summer with. And I was able to learn a lot, and I'm very grateful to that professor for letting me on board that summer and letting me learn a lot about what research is actually like in academia. So the next question is about. What was that?
Yeah, I don't know if it's my connection or your connection. Is that probably you were breaking up a little bit. I don't know if everyone heard what you said.
Okay.
Is that, can you hear Alex well?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. Okay, no. Okay, no worries.
Okay, yeah. I'll try to talk a little more clearly just in case.
Okay.
So the next question asks me about my middle school life. So in middle school, a lot of my effort was focused on math. And so I participated in our middle school math team, and I also participated in math counts, which is like a very popular math competition for middle school students. And so that's mostly what I was doing in middle school. Yeah, that's about it. I tried to do well in school, obviously. I learned a lot of math on my own too, using the Art of Problem Solving books, which I would say that if you don't know which math books would be best for teaching math for competition, I would say art of problem solving books are definitely the best in terms of teaching competition math and also just teaching math in depth in general. So yeah, that's what I mostly did in middle school, mostly just math. I didn't do too much science until I got into high school. So the next question is about if I have any comments for time management with all my courses and the extra chemistry workload. So I think time management is very important, especially in high school, where if you were taking hard classes, you don't have time to put 100% of your effort into everything. And so I heard this saying before that in order to do up to 90% of the amount of work you need to do, it takes a lot less effort than getting from 90% to 100%. And so what I would do is I would definitely put in effort into all of my classes, but I wouldn't spend like hours on homework because I knew that it wasn't worth my time to like try to get that extra like to get from like an A to an A plus or something like that. And so I guess I just like I just made sure to plan out what I was going to do every night and really just like try to not waste any time on like work that I didn't need to be doing or that wouldn't have actually benefited my learning or even my grades. And then with that extra time, I was able to use that time to study chemistry outside of school. So yeah, I think time management is a thing that's very important. And I don't know if my comments really help that much. I think it's really up to like each individual student to find a system that works best for them for managing their own time, especially in high school. So what are the biggest strengths you think that you have to so what are the biggest strengths I think you have to have in order to excel? I think you really have to be able to focus really well and to study without both without giving up and also without how do you say it? To study without giving up and to study without really like taking a break and wasting some time. I found when I first began studying, I would allocate like maybe 3 or 4 hours each day to just read this chapter in the textbook, and then the next day I would say allocate like 4 or 5 hours to just working on these problems, and then after that I would do other things like watch TV or hang out with friends. But I think being able to really focus when you tell yourself that you need to focus is both good in terms of studying well and also in terms of getting things done when you have a lot to do. So the next question, how long did I study every day? So I think my studying amount definitely varied from day to day and even from month to month. So when it's like the middle of the school year and it's far away from any competitions, I might only spend like half an hour to an hour a day studying. Sometimes I would spend more, sometimes I would spend less, depending on how much schoolwork I had and what I had going on outside of school. But when it came closer to competitions, I would definitely try to dedicate more time into both reviewing stuff that I might have forgotten before and also just practicing, taking tests and practicing with the timing and everything. And on days closer to the competitions, I might spend like 2 hours or up to 3 hours. And especially during quarantine, during the past few weeks, studying for the study camp and studying for the International Olympiad, because I've been at home and I don't have much else to do, I've been able to put in much more time. So I think in the month before the study camp this year, I put in maybe 6 or 7 hours a day, and then some days I would take a break. And yeah, but that was probably the most intense period of studying that I've had even in all of my past 3 years. I think most of the time I don't put in nearly that much, and most of the time it's only maybe an hour a day. What do you appreciate most about your parents during this journey? So I think what I most appreciate about my parents is that they didn't really try to push anything onto me. They didn't really have too many expectations for me, and that allowed me to like pursue my own interests without having another like two voices telling me what to do. And I think me being able to choose what I wanted to do and to study on my own terms without having anyone to like tell me to study when I was burnt out or anything, that really um, helped me in terms of myself organizing my own studying instead of someone organizing my own studying for me. And yeah, I just appreciate them like giving me this freedom, and also that when I did choose to do something, they were there to support me and yeah, and to check in on me and everything like that. Did you get high school teachers help on the preparation for the chemistry Olympiad? So I actually did in my freshman year. I didn't have a so this teacher in this picture here, she wasn't actually my chemistry teacher because I didn't take chemistry my freshman year, but she was like the coordinator for the Olympiad at our school, and she was also my homeroom teacher in the high school. And so I knew she was a chemistry teacher, and so when I began to prepare for the Olympiad, I actually asked her if I could drop by sometimes after school to learn some lab skills. And she was very nice, and she let me do that, and she helped me by giving me some labs they were doing in their chemistry classes and teaching me how to use equipment, and I found that really helpful. And I think that was actually the first time I began to prepare in any way for chemistry labs. How do I get help when I have questions? So I think when I first started, I would just look up whatever I didn't know. The internet's a very useful tool for studying, especially now when most people are learning things online by themselves. I think I was also very lucky to have made the study camp the first year, because in subsequent years, I had a bunch of friends who were much more knowledgeable than me, and I was able to ask them any questions I had. But I would say if you are beginning to study, then the internet's definitely a good place to look. And if you still really can't find any answers there, then there are a lot of online communities on like the art of problem solving and like on Discord, where there are a lot of students studying chemistry together, and they ask each other questions there all the time. They're able to learn a lot from each other. Which grade do you recommend students to first learn chemistry? So I think it really depends on their interests, but in terms of like a minimum grade, I would say they should at least have some solid math knowledge, since even though chemistry isn't as math heavy as a subject such as physics, you still do need to be fluent in just simple algebra manipulations. And so I would say maybe after they learn like algebra, then that'd be a okay time to start. And that at that point there won't be any math that would be super foreign to them. But I think other than math, there isn't too much background knowledge you would need to know to begin studying chemistry that you wouldn't learn in middle school or otherwise. And so I really think it's up to like when you become interested in it. So how did my parents help me find my interests and passions? So this is sort of similar to the last question. I think they didn't really try to like force me to do anything, and they helped me when I asked them to explore new things. I think a big example of this was how I actually got into math team in middle school. I took this math class at our Chinese school, and how I began taking this, I was actually just looking through the catalog and I saw this math class, and I had already liked math in elementary school, and so I decided that I wanted to take this class. And so I asked my parents, and they were willing to like pay for the class and everything, and they were supportive of that. And so I think that just my parents being there and being supportive whenever I needed them for anything was probably the biggest help they did for me. So the next question was how long it took me to study chemistry and math each day. So I think I stopped like studying math by myself at home in maybe my freshman year, or like late into my freshman year. Before then I still did a little bit of math, but after that I mostly did chemistry. And I think like before I said, I probably on average only did maybe like 1 hour a day. But some days I wouldn't do any since I had more work, and some days I would do a lot more since I didn't have any work. So it definitely did vary from day to day, but I think an average of about an hour a day, with maybe more on weekends. Sounds about right. So what out-of-school resources would you recommend or use? So I think the best way to learn any science subject on your own is to read textbooks specifically designed for those subjects. And so I showed a few that I use for chemistry. I think this book right here is a very good book for introductory chemistry. Some harder chemistry books I showed on this slide. But yeah, I think definitely if you're interested in learning any like science related topic, then reading textbooks and doing problems in textbooks, I would say that that's definitely the best way to go. So do I participate in any other extracurriculars such as music or sports? So I was on a swim team until 8th grade, but then after then I stopped, and then I haven't really done too many sports. I did Frisbee in like the fall of my freshman year, but that was about it. And for music, I play piano, and I've been playing since I was around like 5 or 6. And I still do that now, and I still practice. I try to practice every day still. What do I plan on studying in college? So I'm not too sure right now, but I think something along the lines of chemistry or chemistry biology, something like that. How much time did I have to hang out with friends each week? So I think this also varied a lot from week to week, but I definitely did have time. I think after school, after science bowl practice or after math team practice, I would often go to the library with my friends, and we'd either get some food maybe, or we'd study together there. And so even if I wasn't just out walking with my friends and like playing or something, I did study a lot with my friends. Even if we weren't studying the same thing, it's nice to have other people around you. At least for me it is, when you're studying. And I think that's all the questions there are. Does anyone have any other questions? So I didn't play video games for a long time, but I do now. But they're just like small games on my phone that I do when I don't have much else to do. But yeah, I played a lot more in like elementary school, and then in middle school I didn't really play too much other than like games on my phone sometimes.
All right, that's great. Thank you so much, Alex. Any more questions from the audience? I think I really feel this. It's not a long talk, but it's very insightful. You covered a lot, not only the chemistry competition, you covered your extracurriculum, your time management, your relationship with parents, which is, it's definitely, I think all these things are going to be helpful for the kids and the parents here. So that's really good. So if no more, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's one more question.
Yeah, okay. Do you read a lot? That's really good question.
Other than like textbooks, I don't read as much as I want to, and that's mostly just because I'm busy with other things. But if I could read more, I would read more. I read a lot more in like elementary school, in like middle school. I read a lot of books, but in high school, I just haven't really had the time to read for fun too much.
That's the thing, Alex. I think my son read a lot in a young age, at a young age, but I really like feel sorry for him not reading a lot. But I understand with a high schooler, you don't have much that time, right? Mm-hmm. So that's good to know. So we have 3 more.
Yeah.
Do you have learning curve? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there definitely was a point where I felt it was really hard to improve. And I think this was probably after the second time I participated in the study camp, because I had already done so many practice tests, and I still wasn't able to get all the way to where I wanted. And I guess I just overcame it I took a little break after the camp ended to do some other things, and I didn't really think too much about the Olympiad. And then when I came back, I think just over time, I was able to better digest everything I learned. And so even if I wasn't like actively learning new things, I was better able to use stuff I had already learned to solve more difficult problems. So I think like, especially when you're like trying to do tests which require you to understand things at a very deep level, sometimes the best thing you can do is just to like give it some time to fully sink in. Am I going to do the Olympiad in my senior year? So I'm not going to do it anymore. And part of that is because there's a rule for the United States team that if you earn a gold medal, you can't participate anymore. But also I want to explore some new things. So yeah, I'm probably not gonna participate anymore in my senior year, but I will make sure that I don't forget any of the chemistry I learned. And the last question, when do I sleep? So I think I sleep pretty late, but I don't sleep like too late compared to other people in my grade. On a school night, I usually sleep around 12 to 1. But sometimes if I have a lot of work, I might actually sleep later than that. And sometimes if I'm really tired and I don't have much work to do, I'll sleep earlier to catch up on some sleep.
One more.
So since you touched chemistry in 8th grade, do you learn outside of school to learn extra chemistry? So I didn't really learn, other than just reading on my own and doing stuff on my own. I didn't attend any classes or anything for chemistry. I think that I tend to learn best on my own anyways. So yeah, I think for the most part, I just learned on my own by reading these textbooks and like working through problems. So how would I like a parent to encourage or inspire a child when they face a learning curve or difficulty? I'm not really sure, but I will say something that probably doesn't work is just like being too forceful in making a child do something that they really don't want to do, because it not only probably won't help them do it, but it will probably also make them not enjoy the subject more and more. And so I actually hear some stories. This is not chemistry, but I hear some stories about music, and how it goes is that there are a lot of students who are really good at, say, violin or something, and they go to college and they study violin, they're really good. But the problem is they really don't like the violin anymore because they've just been forced to do it so much since they were little that it's not become enjoyable anymore. So I don't really know. I don't think I have a good answer, but I would just say don't like force like young students to do anything they really, really don't want to do. What is one piece of advice I would give to a rising junior who is taking AP chemistry in school? So I would just say, I think for most schools in like this area, the education is pretty good and the teachers are pretty good. So I would just say pay attention during class, because at least at Lexington High School, our chemistry teachers are very knowledgeable and they give really good lectures during class that if you listen well, you might not even need to read the textbook. But if you find yourself struggling in class, then the textbook has everything that the teacher probably talked about. And it's nice to refer back to it. Yeah, so don't do nothing when you don't understand something. Make sure to like, if you find that there's something you don't understand, don't ignore it, and you should try to go back and really learn what your gap in knowledge is. Because in chemistry, things tend to build up on each other. And so if early on you ignore something that you don't know, it will come back later to hurt you. And when you're learning more difficult things. So which book would I recommend for a middle schooler to study chemistry? I think the same book should be fun. I think most middle schoolers have a decent understanding of like, have a good enough understanding of math to learn everything. But I think like if you don't know very basic science concepts like states of matter, solid, liquid, gas, and like the idea of heat and stuff like that you just learn in middle school science classes, it's kind of hard to fully take in all the information. So I mean, for middle schoolers, they don't really have to, if you're in middle school, a middle school student wouldn't necessarily have to learn the subject as in depth since they have all of high school to do that. So maybe just watching online videos such as YouTube videos about this or videos on Khan Academy would be helpful by itself. Oh, so the other chemistry textbook page. Yeah, so this I would recommend as a very good introductory chemistry textbook. They tend to go over concepts pretty well in depth, and I think their problems are also very interesting, and they have a lot of hard problems too if you happen to be a pretty fast learner.
All right, Alex, I have a question and maybe you covered, I missed. You said you did some chem experiment for the competition. Have you done any chemistry research outside the competition and also outside of the school?
Yeah, so after my freshman year, I did some experimental research for a lab at Harvard, and I didn't actually, I wasn't too involved in like actually creating like the research procedure and stuff like that. I was more helping out with some chemistry stuff. And so here I would just like carry out some procedures that my mentor would tell me to do. And I mean, it gave me a lot of exposure to working in an actual chemistry lab. And it also helped me learn more about like the instruments used in the lab and the materials used.
Yeah.
And then I also did research with the machine learning stuff, which I just do at home on my own computer since that research is more programming based.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. Any more questions from folks? If not, I think we can close the talk. I think it's really really appreciative, Alex, for you to give us this sharing. I think I personally learned a lot from what you shared, and congratulations again on your achievement. That's really awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, and all right. Oh, I do see another question.
Okay, yeah.
Which programming language did you use for your machine learning?
So I use Python, and I think Python has a lot of like programs that are designed for chemistry stuff.
Mm.
And so yeah. I think there's another question, which colleges I'm applying to. I haven't really finalized the list yet, but I know I want to apply to MIT because a lot of people I know go there and heard it's a very good experience there.
Mm-hmm.
And where did I find my mentors? My mentors were just graduate students working at the labs that I reached out to the professors for. Okay, I think that's all the questions.
Yeah. All right. May the slides be shared.
Yeah, no problem.
Alex.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, this seminar is being recorded, so the recording will be shared as well. All right. So, yeah, great. So, if nothing more, we can give folks a few minutes back. And again, thank you for your wonderful talk, Alex. And I want to thank for Wu Jing and I'm sorry, what's her name? Liu Dan for the technical support, and also again for CALex for this platform for us to utilize. All right. Okay. Yeah. If nothing else, no more questions. Thank you everyone for joining us, and have a good night.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for coming.
Yeah.
It was great to speak with all of you.
Great. Bye-bye. Bye, Alex.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
有多少人？